I'm Allyson Wilkinson, and I was born in Washington County and came home full-time in 2018. And there's no place I'd rather be. What brought me here was always wanting to come home, even though I was raised in Texas. So I loved that, but after my mother had died, and my mother was a native Tennessean, Washington Countyan, it just felt like a really great place to be home. So I moved permanently in 2018 when the county offered me a position, which was amazing and a wonderful blessing and gift, because I was a full-time worker. I was a lawyer in Houston and a litigator. But I feel like I was probably circling East Tennessee like a hawk from like the 90s, from the time I was in law school, thinking when the time comes, this is where I want to be. When I tell people about Jonesboro, I always think of it as like a sunny place, and that it always reminds me of fiddle music. Like it seems like a fun, like there's always harvest and all that kind of thing, which I know is not true. Everything has hard times, but I think there's a connection here. So I'm grateful for that. We live down in a holler a little bit, shady, not a lot of sunshine sometimes, but when it comes out, it's super bright. And we've been very fortunate to be able to keep the cattle who run there or running there. And so we don't have a lot of crops. We put in a garden every year, but I feel like it's so important that we're losing so much farmland that, we want to maintain it. And so the house goes to, we think, the 1850s. We don't know for a fact. So it's an old Tennessee 2/2 that's had, some bump outs put on it. And, we live pretty simply, but we're just so glad to kind of see it into the 21st century and try to steward its stability, that its fireplaces are safe and that kind of thing. I love the job that I have now. Well, I'll just say, what do I like about being a lawyer? You really are trying to help at some level, but I also love the problem solving. I love that you can identify something and how to make it better. But right now, my job is actually, I'm the county's attorney. So it really was an answer to my prayer to be of service. And so having been in commercial litigation for decades, which was wonderful, and I adored my clients, and I really interesting, very heady issues. Really what I wanted to do was be of service at this point in my life. And so the county's invested in me to learn my way around the county's needs and the law that authorizes county officials and county departments to do things. And so I get to now continue to do that. So that's been about 5.5 years, something like that. So I love it. Love it. Once a month, all of the committees of the Washington County Board of County Commissioners meet. So from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., one Thursday a month, they meet one after the other. And at every one of those meetings, there's a prayer and there's a pledge. And I always joke that it's like prayer and pledge day, that many times a day we're reminded, of how fortunate we are to be here and to be of service and to live in such a great country and to be able to do the work that we do. We have a wonderful archivist here in Washington County. And so I think since 2011 we've had archives, and he asked the county mayor to use the county attorney's services to ask back a bunch of documents that were lost to the wind. So it's called replevin. And so he knew what it was called, and he asked me to work on it with him, and we were able to successfully return, I may be underestimating the number, but I think more than 11,000 documents that had been sent to different libraries and different holdings, but they were all county documents, and under Tennessee law, they remain county documents. And that was the first year that I was here. And then in time for our 225th anniversary as a state, I think, here lately. I was able to work on the team, and I've gotten a lot of credit for the successful return of our deed book A, which had been gone for 100 years. Getting those documents to come home as I was coming home was really a blessing.
So tell me about this place.
So this place was Mr. Beckett's store, but one of the fun things was because our first little stay place is around the corner from here, and so I always walked by, and I always really liked this place. And when we were here full time, I would drive this way every morning on my way to work, and I remember there's a big orange cat in the window, and I thought, well, bless his heart, he lives there. I should not be looking at it, and it wasn't for sale or anything. And then one thing led to another, and the next thing I know, the most lovely woman was happy to sell it to me. She had inherited it from her mother, and her mother was the mayor of Jonesboro at one point. Through that came a wonderful friendship with her. So it was a private residence. I think of it as Mr. Beckett's store, which is what it was like in the 30s and 40s. Mr. Beckett lived in the house on the corner of Spring and Sevier. So Mr. Beckett his family lived there. A friend of ours remembers getting bologna cut here. Before that, a blacksmith. So it was the location of a blacksmith. It's been added on to, closed in, shored up, and all the rest of that. So when it was a blacksmith, it probably would have been open. But if you put a shovel anywhere around here, it'll come up black. I can't help but feel connected to them, that I'm just the next one in the line. And my husband and I were able to redo the whole place. And so I've got the photograph of the, the matriarchs, the Jonesboro matriarch, 1912 when they laid the cornerstone. So there was a marketing effort to show the town and its fine new courthouse. I wasn't there, but as best I've read. So these 5 matriarchs of Jonesboro, Tennessee, stood by the old mill spring with a gourd as a dipper. And there's a poem about anyone who drinks from the spring, will come back. And so I've got them. And that actually was here before. So I've left that. That runs with the building. I think that one of the things we don't see immediately, unless you scratch the surface, is how much everyone supports one another. I think it's only after you've been encouraged, or is it that you realize that someone's encouraging you so much, that they're investing in you, and that they ask for your help, and could you do, and would you do, but then so then after you get to know people, you realize everybody's doing that for someone. So whether it's someone who's ill and there's a meal train, or if it's a new business and everybody goes all winter to make sure that they make it. That's a very special community that will do that. Because it's not really anything anybody asks you to do. I think it's just something that everybody's like-minded to want to do.
Tell me about a time when you were grateful to be living in Jonesboro.
Like every day. My hope is that I just hope that it would continue to preserve its finest qualities. I think, communities are always at crossroads at different times, and I think, there's been a lot of change, which gets accelerated in different decades, right, depending on that sort of thing. But I'm sure that, Cherokee probably saw my people as change, and now we probably are seeing another big change across our country. And so, we've got such great qualities in our town and I have all the confidence in the world in the people who are in leadership roles and people who volunteer. I think that'll occur. And I think Jonesboro is fortunate that way. Farmland is at risk in our community, and this was the county seat, and so this is where on Saturdays farmers would come to trade. I know that's a romantic idea, that it's not ever going to be that way, but there are still people who remember day to day loving the town and living in it and contributing to it, being connected to it. And so I don't think there's a risk of losing that, but I think it's important to preserve that. And then obviously having the historic preservation is so important.